Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and in this video we're going to discuss the most important events that have taken place since the beginning of 2026. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And as you may know, first hours and first days of 2026 were marked with massive missile and drone strike that took place between Russia and Ukraine. Both the Russians and Ukrainians were attacking each other. The Russians are saying that just yesterday, on the 1st of January 2026, during the 4 at 11 p.m. of Moscow time, they managed to bring down more than 200 drones. Furthermore, we have a map. This map was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see the approximate routes. As you can see, there were at least 3 waves of attacks. The first one was launched in the direction of Crimea, the second one in the southern part of Russia, and the third one was launched in the direction of the city of Moscow. Once again, Russians, according to information we have, managed to bring down more than 200 drones just between 4 and 11 p.m. But there were more drones. The sources are saying that there were more than 500 drones altogether since the end of 2025. At the same time, we continue receiving reports that Ukraine continued attacking Russian oil infrastructure, critical infrastructure, energy infrastructure. In this video, for example, we can see the consequences of Ukraine's attack. This is the Ilinsky oil refinery that was damaged by Ukrainians. At the same time, the Russians also launched massive drone attack through the territory of Ukraine during those days, but that wasn't something that's most likely everybody in the world expected. That was just an attack with hundreds of drones, and that's it. So this map was published on the 1st of January of 2026, and according to this map, we see that Russians were attacking the northwestern part of Ukraine and the southern part of Ukraine, so the Odessa region. So as you can see, the Russians were attacking the logistic roads and the regions of the main logistic of Ukraine. So the northwestern part, lots of let's say equipment, lots of support is coming exactly through this area from Poland, and of course the Odessa region, lots of supply and support go also from this direction. So the Russians were attacking, trying to probably reduce the logistic capabilities of Ukraine. Ukrainians reported that during those attacks they managed to bring down 205 drones. No, the Russians launched 205 drones, and Ukrainians managed to bring down just 176. So as you can see, those days were very difficult, and we have report that during the previous 24 hours there was another attack in the southern parts of Crimea, of Kherson region. The Russians are saying that Ukrainians attacked the settlement by the name of Horli. So there was something like holiday. People were celebrating New Year, and during this celebration, three drones attacked this territory. And according to information we have, there are casualties among civilians. Furthermore, Ukrainians tried to attack the settlement of Volna from the Black Sea. This is a very important video because now we see that Ukrainians are using drones much more often in comparison with the previous days to attack the Crimea and the southern part of Russia from the Black Sea. So this is the video that was published during the previous 24 hours. This video shows attacks from Ukrainian side on the military infrastructure in the southern parts of this region. Furthermore, we have a very interesting report that is coming from Moscow. According to information we have, materials containing decrypted routing data and the controller of the Ukrainian drone, which was hit by Russian air defense system on the night of December 29th over Novgorod region during an attack on the residence of the President of Russia, were handed over to a representative of the military attaché office of the US Embassy in Moscow. So as you can see, the Russians are still collecting the legal base before making their massive strike. So Russians are trying to make everything legal. So we cannot call this situation as a legal situation. Obviously, this is not something like this. But as you can see, the Russians are not in a hurry. The Russians have already determined targets they are going to attack. The Russians have already done everything they need for this massive attack through the entire territory of Ukraine. But before doing this, first of all, they want to describe everything, to provide necessary updates, and basically they want that the European countries, the Western countries, the United States of America, to be 100% sure and to be under complete understanding of why the Russians are doing this and why the Russians are attacking Ukraine with drones and missiles. And this attack most likely is going to happen very, very soon. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. During the previous, since the beginning, let's call it like this, since the beginning of 2026, lots of changes on the ground have been recorded. So these are the changes in the Zaporozhye direction, in the western Zaporozhye direction. This is the situation by the end of the December of 2025. This is the 1st of January, and this is the beginning of the 2nd of January. The Russians improved their positions around the settlement of Primorska. Furthermore, most of the mappers show the settlement of Primorska either in the control of Russian forces or in the gray zone. The Russians continue offensive. Furthermore, the Russians continue improving their positions around the settlement of Lukyanovska. And this is already the second settlement in this direction. The first one was the settlement of Stepnogorsk. Now the Russians, according to different sources, improve their positions around Lukyanovska. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Orekhov direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received a report that Russians, as a result of offensive operation, improved their positions on the territory of the settlement of Bilagoria. And based on the updates that were published by pro-Ukrainian sources, we believe that in coming days or in coming maybe even hours, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information. We have just this picture where we can see that Russian soldiers were recorded on the territory of the settlement without any video for now, but at the same time we had a report that pro-Ukrainian sources also confirmed additional progress on the ground from the Russian side in this region. As for the eastern Zaporozhye direction, after the ending of the battle for the settlement of Gulay-Polye, the Russians continued their offensive operation further in the western direction, and now the sources are saying that the battle for the settlement of Zaliznichne has begun. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 2025, this is the 1st of January, this is the 2nd of January. The Russians, as you can see, according to neutral mappers, improved their position significantly to the west and the southwest of the settlement of Gulay-Polye. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians began assault operation on the city of Zaliznichne. So this is the second settlement to the west of the river of Gaichul in the area of the settlement of Gulay-Polye. And this is a very important settlement. It's a very powerful stronghold. If Russians are able to establish complete control over the territory, then the Russians will enter the Orekhov operational space and they will continue offensive operation further in the southwestern direction to attack the city of Orekhov from behind. And now, most likely, this is the reason why we start seeing and watching the activization of Russian forces around the settlement of Bilagoria. Most likely we should expect another Russian offensive operation, this time from the south and the northern direction, with the purpose to combine these two attacks together and then to move further in the direction of the city of Orekhov. As for the northern flank of the river of Gaichur, we haven't received anything since the end of 2025. Very difficult and complicated situation. Of course, we are waiting for additional updates about the situation around the settlement of Ternovate, but currently sometimes the weather doesn't allow to advance further in the western direction for Russians, and most likely the Ukrainians managed to partially stabilize the situation, so that is why we stopped receiving anything from this area. As for the Pokrovsk direction, during the previous 24 hours, according to different sources, the Russians and the Ukrainians began very heavy clashes for the settlement of Rodinskaya. So I'd like to remind you that the latest report we received from this area was that Russians answered the settlements of Belitskaya and Novodonbass. But today we start receiving reports that Ukrainians began another counter-offensive operation with the purpose to answer the city of Rodinskaya and to restore control over the settlement. So currently there are very heavy clashes on the line between the settlements of Rodinskaya, Belitskaya and Novodonbass. So this territory with very heavy clashes and attacks, counter-attacks both from Russian and Ukrainian sides. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, because the battle for this area, for the area around the city of Belitskaya, will determine whether the Russians will be able to advance further in the direction of the city by the name of Dobropolye. If Ukraine loses the city of Dobropolye, Russians will enter the Kharkiv region from the south, most likely within several months. Now let's discuss the situation in the area of Konstantinovka, where the Russians are about to finish the battle for the N20 and 32 road, the most important logistic line. I would like to remind you that during the previous days, the Russians managed to improve their logistic around the city of Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and now the Russians are focused completely on improving their logistic possibilities and to finish, everything connected with the logistic. The Russians are required to do just one thing. They need to establish complete control over the N20 and 30 road and 32 road and to force Ukrainians to fall back. If Russians take under control the N20 and 32 roads, this will connect the cities of Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Konstantinovka, Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar with the mainland. And to do this, the Russians need to establish complete control over this territory. And during the previous 24 hours, 48 hours since the beginning of 2026, lots of changes in this area have been recorded. So these are the changes. Yesterday, pro-Russian sources stated that Russians managed to improve their positions to the north of the Kliban-Bytska water reservoir. This morning, we had this video where we can see how two Russian soldiers answered this stronghold, and then Ukrainians attacked this territory with FPV drone. So this episode took place right exactly at this point. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map around this stronghold. So the Russians are about to finish the battle for this territory, and only then Russians will begin their major offensive operation in the direction of the city of Konstantinovka. So first everything to the bottom of this red line, and only then the Russians will continue. Furthermore, the sources reported that Russians also improved their positions and took under complete control the stronghold between the cities of Konstantinovka and Chasiv Yar. So this video was published also by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see an FPV drone attack on the soldier of the armored force of the Russian Federation in this area. So this attack took place right exactly at this point. Based on this video, we came to the conclusion that this stronghold was also captured by the armored force of the Russian Federation. As for the Siversk-Slaviansk direction, during the previous 24 hours since the beginning of 2026, nothing special was recorded. The Russians continue bombing and attacking positions of the armored forces of Ukraine, trying to soften them. This is what the Russians are doing right now. They are using lots of artillery forces, they're using lots of FPV drone forces, and when the Russians soften the positions and the defense of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area, only then the Russians will continue their offensive operation. As of now, there are still lots of things to do, and sometimes, and not sometimes, but always, weather conditions don't allow the Russians to advance further. As for the city of Kupiansk, we had a report that most likely the Ukrainians were about to finish the battle for the city. During the previous 24 hours since the beginning of 2026, additional changes on the ground have been recorded. So these are the changes between the days. According to neutral mappers, the armored forces of Ukraine managed to improve their positions in the northeastern part of the city of Kupiansk. Furthermore, pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that they're about to finish the battle for the entire city, and the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians were defeated in the area of the city of Kupiansk, but pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that the Russians are not going to give up. The Russians are regrouping right now. The Russians are bringing additional reinforcements and reserves, and this means that the battle for the city of Kupiansk will continue, and this is going to be the fifth battle. For the past 24 hours, Kupiansk has been under massive airstrike by the Russian armored forces. I don't remember such strong activity of the Russian armored forces on the front in a year. So that was stated by different pro-Western sources. Furthermore, the Russians during the previous 24 hours since the beginning of 2026 have managed to improve their positions significantly in the area of the city of Sumy. So these are the changes on the ground between the last 2 days. So this is, for example, the situation by the end of the 30th of December. The Russians managed to improve their positions in the area of Andreevka by the end of the year. By the end of the 1st of January, the Russians improved their positions, and the Russians approached the settlement of Mala-Karchakovka. We believe that in coming days, the clashes for the line Mala-Karchakovka and Krapivnishna will take place. The Russians will try to establish complete control over the territory, and this will allow the Russians to enter the Sumy forest, and then through the Sumy forest, the Russians will continue advancing further in the southern direction until they get the city of Sumy itself. Furthermore, the Russians, according to different mappers, managed to improve their positions, let's say, to the east of the city of Sumy. We are talking about this huge forest. This huge forest was taken by Russians according to different mappers. So as you can see, despite some problems in the area of the city of Kupiansk, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the area of the city of Sumy, and most likely they will continue doing this. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.